o'clock. Call the meeting to order. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Well, good evening, everyone. It's good to see a good crowd tonight. All right. We're going to start the evening with a presentation. Amy Nasta, Gardner Lake.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. As mentioned in a previous council meeting, members of staff and the mayor recently met with members of Johnson County staff, Commissioner Allenbrand, and a contingent of citizens from Gardner Lake to discuss project costs for Gardner Lake. Tonight's presentation will consider the potential costs for the spillway repair and dredging projects, as well as some potential avenues for cost recovery on these projects. One of these avenues is annexation of the properties surrounding the lake into the city of Gardner. In that scenario, road improvement costs will be considered as well. The properties included in these analyses are the properties within the immediate perimeter roads surrounding the lake, as shown in this picture, which has been broken into 8 distinct sections. Please note that these sections are not immediately relevant to the presentation. They are simply included for ease of reference when analyzing tax and other information for specific areas. One of the challenges of analyzing this area has always been the inconsistent property lines and boundaries. For example, this study included approximately 420 distinct parcels. Many residents own more than one adjacent or nearly adjacent parcel, several of which are bisected by roads, making it difficult to determine how assessments and other issues should be resolved. As you can see, those lettered H with the yellow background, those are all one property owner's parcels. For the purpose of this analysis, land owned by a single individual, including trust for that individual, even if differently named, are considered as one owner. This equates to approximately 233 owners. All analysis will be done by owner rather than by parcel in order to eliminate as much confusion as possible and to provide the most equitable and realistic cost analysis. With that background in mind, I would like to first review the estimated project costs for the proposed projects. Repairs to the spillway have an estimated cost of $473,673. This includes 50% payment towards eligible engineering and construction costs by Johnson County. Dredging has an estimated cost of $1.9 to $2.35 million. This figure is based on the most recent official sedimentation survey, which was conducted in 2004, and includes an increase in the total dredging yards by 20% to 109 to 132,000 to account for additional sediment infiltration during the past 19 years, as well as projected cost increases for dredging expenditures per cubic yard since the initial study was conducted. For the first scenario, an increase in dock fees, the cost projections will be focused on the spillway and dredging projects alone. As stated previously, costs for road improvements would be considered only in an annexation scenario. Currently, there are approximately 198 docks at Gardner Lake, each of which is assessed a current dock fee of $40 per dock. It should be noted that the numbers included in the upcoming analysis, 1, assume the full project cost will be assumed by dock owners, and 2, are based on principal alone. Adding an interest to cover the interest cost that will be incurred by the city as well would result in significant additional fees. At a project cost of $473,673 for the spillway, this equates to a cost of $2,392 per dock owner for spillway repairs. If the costs were spread over 5 years, this would equate to a cost of $478 in additional dock fees per year per dock owner, while spreading the cost over 20 years equates to approximately $120 in additional dock fees per year per dock owner. Since the cost for dredging is a range, a figure of $2 million will be utilized for these estimates. At a project cost of $2 million for dredging, this equates to $10,101 per dock owner. Spreading this cost over 5 years equates to a cost of $2,020 in additional dock fees per year per dock owner, while spreading the cost over 20 years equates to $505 in additional dock fees per year per dock owner. Combining the spillway and dredging costs together yields an estimated project cost of $2,473,673 or $12,493 per dock owner. Over 5 years, this is equivalent to $2,499 in additional dock fees per year per dock owner, while spreading the cost over 20 years equates to $625 in additional dock fees per year per dock owner. When considering these costs, there is some additional important context to bear in mind. First, you may have noticed the number of docks, 198, is not equivalent to the number of property owners, approximately 233, meaning that not all property owners within the area reviewed have a dock. Further, some property owners have multiple docks. Staff estimates that, in total, 58 of these approximately 233 property owners, or about 25%, do not have a dock and would not be subject to these fees. Additionally, it is possible that some owners may choose to remove their docks in the face of such significant increases, or may choose to remove any additional docks they may have, further increasing the potential cost burden on those with docks remaining. So as an example, we'll look at 2 sections. On the left-hand side, you can see the properties, and on the right where it's in red, those are properties that don't have docks for one section. And here's the same scenario for a second section. Another option for paying the necessary improvements to Gardner Lake is annexation of the properties at the lake. This would allow the city to use property tax revenue to fund improvements and/or to levy an assessment against property owners, as the city cannot levy an assessment on county properties. Based on 2022 appraised and assessed values provided by Johnson County, and assuming a mill levy of 18.854, the estimated property tax revenue for all properties combined is $176,433.52 annually. In an annexation scenario, an additional project would need to be considered. As the city of Gardner does not have appropriate equipment to maintain large amounts of gravel roads, the roads in this area would need to be paved. Assuming 12,290 linear feet, or approximately 2.33 miles of road, paved with 4 inches of asphalt to a 4-inch deep, paved 25 feet wide to a 4-inch depth with asphalt, the projected cost for this project would be approximately $1.7 million. It should be noted that if 100% of the property taxes generated in this area were put towards the construction cost for these road improvements, 9.68 years worth of property taxes would be required to repay the principal alone. Similarly, paying for the spillway project will require 2.68 years worth of property taxes, while paying for an estimated $2 million in dredging costs would require 11.34 years worth of property taxes. In total, between the road improvements, spillway repairs, and dredging cost, there is an estimated total project cost of nearly $4.2 million. This would require 23.66 years worth of property taxes to recover. Again, all of these numbers would be for principal cost alone and would assume that 100% of property tax revenue was being utilized for project cost. When considering these costs, it should be noted that it would be unrealistic to assume that 100% of property tax revenue could be allocated towards project cost. While the city currently performs some road maintenance and mowing, these responsibilities would increase. Additionally, the city would now be responsible for snow removal, policing, codes enforcement, and all other general municipal responsibilities for an additional 233 households. It should be further noted that these estimates assume that 100% of the property owners in the studied area have been annexed into Gardner city limits. If the city were to annex these properties, another option could be the levying of a special assessment against these properties in order to pay for project cost. At a total of $4.2 million in project cost, this equates to a special assessment of approximately $8,026 per property owner for each of the 233 property owners at Gardner Lake. Excuse me, $18,026. Over a 20-year term, this would result in an annual principal value of approximately $901 per property owner. However, as with all other payment scenarios covered in this presentation, it should be noted that this does not include interest payments, which may cause the projected annual payment to increase significantly, up to nearly double in some scenarios. Additionally, it should be noted that many of these properties already have a special assessment for sewer, water, or both levied against them. Of the approximately 233 property owners in this area, 212, or approximately 91%, are subject to Special Assessment LSD 1 Kill Creek 2 for Gardner Lake. The average assessment per owner is $977 per year, which increases to $1,065 per owner when those not assessed are removed. Further, of the approximately 233 property owners in the area, 68, or 29%, are subject to Special Assessment JCW SAC 9996. The average assessment per owner is $45.91, which increases to approximately $156 per owner when those not assessed are removed. Finally, of the approximately 233 property owners in the area, 65, or about 28%, are subject to both the Kill Creek and JCW assessments. The average assessment per owner is $1,221 per year for those assessed both. It should be noted that benefit districts must meet legal criteria, etc., before it being implemented as well. Finally, during the previous council meeting, Councilwoman Deaton asked that staff determine how many property owners at Gardner Lake are currently residents of Gardner and pay Gardner taxes. Of the approximately 233 property owners, 9, or 3.86%, have all or a portion of their property annexed into Gardner city limits. Of these 9 property owners, 5 also pay dock fees to the city. So on here, you can see anything with the Power G in the background is in Gardner city limits currently and pays taxes. Those that are outlined in red do not have a dock, while the others have a dock as well.
All right, well, thank you, Amy, appreciate that. Discussion from council or questions? For Amy?
That was fabulous. That was a lot of.
Very thorough, thank you.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Appreciate the numbers, although.
That's a lot of numbers to try to write
And
down.
and those numbers are daunting. We understand that. So the folks that are in the current city of Gardner and have docks, have we decided how that would be managed, or is that
How what
something?
would be managed?
So they're paying Gardner property tax, and they're also paying for dock fees.
Yeah, you're talking about 5 people.
Oh, I understand that.
What about?
So is there a question is, okay, the dock fees are per dock out of the lake. Those are gonna be assessed regardless of whether they're in the city or not.
So it works, putting a dock on the water.
Well, I understand that.
Helps save the lake.
Okay, so it's just like maintenance regardless of whether they're in the city or not. Okay. That's when we were talking about.
We can't hear you.
Oh.
True.
I was speaking in.
Now.
Oh.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Let me pull this. Okay, is that better?
Can you review what you just said there?
All I said was that if you are if you're in the city limits, you're paying dock fees for those 5 people that are in the city limits right now, and that those dock fees are made to go towards the upkeep of the lake. Their dock fees are also going to increase, correct? If they decide they're going to want the spillway and dredging projects, correct?
We haven't discussed that.
First, we'd have to see what we're talking about.
Yeah, okay. So I guess we don't have any recommendations today. So this is just information more than anything else.
Any other comments before we move to public comments?
I don't know about anybody else. I don't think annexing is feasible or the way to go. And that's just my,
Use your mic. Turn your mic on.
sorry. Annexing, not feasible or the way to go.
No, I agree with that. There's no reason to annex the lake, or the property owners around it. I mean, it's a mess, always has been as far as property lines are concerned.
Yeah, we have roads out there with no easements. So there's no way you can even identify who owns that road.
The greatest scenario would have been if this conversation, any conversation, was held 60 years ago, when the lake properties were on the decline and people weren't building as many out there yet. So, you know, that was a good transition period. Obviously, none of us were involved in that. But now you have a lake that the city owns the water, but essentially can't access, and it's privately held for all intents and purposes, right?
Mhm.
And all the projects are cost prohibitive for the residents out there, and you wouldn't want to put it on the cities, distribute it equally amongst the rest of the city, because they can't access the lake easily. And even, I would love to see the real numbers, if you actually put in an interest number, and then considered that after 25 years, because that was the only way the numbers were manageable.
20 years. Yeah.
That all of a sudden, all those roads you put in need replaced. And all that maintenance during that time, all those additional things you mentioned, the numbers are triple, 5 times, 8 times. So to be able to do much out there would be extremely difficult. Now that being said, since we have the water and the city hasn't done anything with it, I still think we should find every opportunity for grants to help with the spillway, because we have a liability issue there. We need to take care of that. But I still go back to, I would love to see the residents of the Lake Association, to take the lake from us. We fix the spillway and then deed it to those property owners. They can have their lake for $1. And then we're done with it. And they can do whatever they want with it, however they want to do with it. I don't care. But we should get that spillway taken care of and then pass the torch.
And I've got no problem with that. We just need access to the lake for the Gardner Golf Course. There's
How about water rights?
water rights.
I mean, there's a spring underneath,
Yeah.
underneath, so it's not an issue.
Correct.
I'd like to, I know you're gonna open it for public comment,
Sure.
but I would like to hear from the lake residents and see where
Absolutely.
they're leaning and what questions they have, et cetera. Because I don't know that I'm ready to make a decision, and I don't know that we are supposed to tonight, but
No, this is
I feel like
discussion.
I need more information from the people that live there.
And that's fine. We're going to do that.
Yes. Okay. So why don't we move into public comments? And I have one prepared public comment that was emailed from Jan Pringle that I will read out loud here in just a second. But the rules for our public comments, I do want to start off with, you can talk about city matters, items on the agenda, not part of a public hearing. When it's time, if you wish to come forward, you have a 5-minute time limit. There's a time limit to our left. No profanity, no personal attacks, and I do strongly recommend, that we not, if a point has been made, that we don't need to keep, reinforcing the point. Try and keep it, new topics or new ideas or new thoughts as much as we can with that. So I do want to read, before we start, I do want to read public comment from Jan Pringle, 15271 Lake Road 1. And she says, thank you for the opportunity to submit these comments. I've been a Gardner Lake resident for 25 years. More than once I've heard council members state the opinion that lake residents do not contribute financially to the city or to lake upkeep. I am writing to dispel that myth. All lake property owners pay school taxes, which benefits the city. Last year, just for my small house, I paid $1,560 for USD 231. For larger homes, this amount is significantly higher or even double. Countless home renovations and many new homes being built constantly increase the money devoted to USD 231. Also, we are paying over $1,200 per year for 20 years toward the sanitary sewer assessment. Sanitary sewers play a large role in protecting the health and quality of the lake. Another point is that lake residents raised over $3,000 for stocking the lake with the grass carp. This also plays a large role in protecting water quality. Additionally, lake residents support local businesses in the form of groceries, gas, restaurant patronage, auto repair, and a multitude of personal services. That's a lot of tax dollars. I agree with the national consensus that the value of public parks to a community transcends the money invested. Parks are considered an essential public service. Granted, 16% of shoreline is open to the public, but remember there is a boat launch area, shelter, and ample parking, plus a fishing dock. There is a lovely park below the dam which also has a shelter. The city's other shoreline properties can make excellent picnic and fishing spots, but I know for certain that few city residents even know these things exist. I see it often on social media when someone mentions Gardner Lake. The responses range from wondering where it's located to asking if it's open to the public. I contend the city does little to promote an asset which city residents could be enjoying. To summarize, lake residents do indeed contribute, and you do indeed own a real asset. Respectfully submitted, Jan Pringle. Okay. So with that being said, podium is now open. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record. That being said, open it up.
Hi, my name is Susie Townley. I live at 15415 Lake Road 3. I am one of the few homes that is located within the city limits of Gardner. We pay I missed one that Amy pointed out, actually two properties that Amy pointed out. But of the 8 property owners with 5 docks, we pay almost $3,000 in city taxes. That does not include the dock fees. We have the same city services available to us that every other resident at Gardner Lake has. If we get our road plowed, it's because we call and badger. We have not had any kind of road maintenance. We don't complain, but that's all we get. When we voluntarily annexed back in the 90s, we were told that it was beneficial for us to do that we would get cheaper water rates. I don't know if that's true or not because I don't ask my neighbors what they pay for water. We got a fire hydrant, and that's pretty much it. If we are talking about raising dock fees, the people on Lake Road 3 and the other properties owned by the city should receive special consideration. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
Good evening, and thank you for inviting us. I am Amy Heaven. I live at 29360 Lake Road 11, 153rd Terrace, and I'm president of the Gardner Lake Association. And the one thing that I want to set the record straight on is that we are willing to take responsibility for what we're able to do, and the pervasive rumor that we're not willing to be responsible for our property and the lake and the beautiful asset we have is not correct. I mean, we've met several times to try to talk about options and possible scenarios to put it together that's mutually beneficial. So I want you to know that there is an air of cooperation there. Things have changed. The lake is populated with full-time residents and not people that came out 2 or 3 times a year to stay in a fishing cottage that weren't invested, but that has changed. And I'm just hoping that we can reach some sort of an arrangement that works out best for all of us. So we're offering our cooperation, and we're all ears, and thank you for this meeting.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Amy.
Hi, my name is Mike Stoppard, and I live at 29340 Lake Road 11. And I want to thank Amy for the presentation. I want to, Mark talked a bit about options, about taking over the lake and so on. And there's, with any of these things, there's pros and cons. You know, it's essentially we've got a problem, and we've got to figure out, you know, between us, you know, what's the most equitable thing, and also education, having people understand what the options are, and put all those on the table. And so just like Mark said, you know, we want to fix, you know, spillway and then give up the lake, and that's an option. But then there comes with water rights. So you're saying you're giving up your water rights, and what other, sounds like the golf course has water rights. But these are all nuances of the different options on the table. But I think the one thing that the city can do is help, you know, provide the information, the studies you've done, and collaborate with us and help identify what those options are so we can clarify it within our organization and come back to you and come up with a more equitable solution that works for everybody. So we can work together. I think that would be good. And again, education and identifying, you know, what the options are. I know there's, you know, I was just in Johnson County recently over by Highway 7. I saw a huge lake that I'm sure Johnson County's put in there. So you're talking millions of dollars going into that. So, and they're putting millions of dollars into recreation. So I think with some of the things that are going on in DeSoto and things like that, the population is going to grow. And I think having parks and recreation are part of that. So how do we make that work? I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Hi, folks. My name is Clint Anderson. My property is at 15335 Lake Road 2. It's a weekend place for us. I live in Olathe permanently. We bought our place in 2015 and did a substantial renovation to it. It was a little piece of junk when we bought it, and it's now a really beautiful property. We spend a lot of time out there. We have a lot of friends that come out. We had never really spent any time in the city of Gardner before coming out. We come out now every weekend. We spend money at all the local restaurants and Groundhouse Coffee and what have you. We spend plenty of sales tax, as do our friends and so forth. We kind of humorously refer to Gardner as our weekend resort town. My kids groan when I call it that, but that's really the reality, and we love it. We've actually had a number of friends come in from out of town. I had good friends of ours from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, looking for something to do for their family vacation this summer. They vacationed at Gardner Lake. Can you believe that? They came in from Myrtle Beach, and they brought their brother in from Iowa, and they all vacationed at my place at Gardner Lake at the weekend resort town. So I just give you that example to know that there's, you know, I mean, those of us, look, it's a lake. It's cool. We bring friends and so forth from elsewhere. There's dollars that come in from outside those 233 properties that get spent in the community. It's a very unique asset. Amy made the point, Amy Heaven, and I completely agree. There's a willingness, a great will. I think it's true for our residents that we expect to be part of a solution. I mean, good grief, we've had a crazy good deal for decades, as you point out. You know, $40 a year does not pay for the kind of projects that you outlined. I mean, I'm certainly aware of that. I certainly hope that my fellow Lake Road resident or fellow Lake residents realize that we have to be meaningfully part of the solution for the next 60 or 100 years. Now, bear in mind too, and I'll close by saying this, it's public access. And maybe you all don't take advantage of that, but I'll tell you what, my property looks straight across at the boat ramp, and it gets a lot of use from, you know, people, again, bringing their dollars into the community, and they're going to go have a bite at Blazers afterwards and fill up at Casey's afterwards, et cetera. That's sales tax revenue coming to the city, and it's visibility to the city. So, you know, I just remember, as long as it's public access, it wouldn't be reasonable to put the full cost of what that rehab needs to be just on those 233 property owners, if it's still public access. And maybe it's not public access if you hand us the keys and walk away for $1. It doesn't sound like too bad of a deal to me. But, you know, I guess I'll just close by saying I agree with Amy's point about spirit of cooperation, and bear in mind that there's a lot of revenue that comes into the city that you might not even be aware of. Thank you.
comment. If you want to stick, we have just a very, very brief consent agenda, and then we'll go right into council updates, and we'll probably discuss this some more. So if you want to stay for just a few minutes, and then we'll pick back up with the meeting. That's all right, council?
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So moving on to the consent agenda, is there an item on the consent agenda you'd like to be removed? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Motion Deaton, second Baldwin. We approve the consent agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstained? Consent agenda passes. No planning and zoning consent, no committee recommendations, no old business, no new business. Move on to council updates. Why don't we start then with council updates?
We can do that. Yeah, I was going to ask a couple of questions around the actual spillway project, and I know that, Kellen, you've been kind of working through some of the numbers on that. Understanding that the spillway has to be done. We have to get that done. That's going to be something that's going to, that it does present a clear and present liability right now. So do you happen to have any kind of an idea, maybe you could chime in as well, Matt, about how we would potentially structure this to make it, to make it as little expense as possible over that period of time where we might have a bonding?
We could issue debt that way, and we could have, if we have some kind of fees that are supporting it, we can make transfers. Say we're getting like some kind of dock fee, or
We can't hear you.
say if it's going to be partially supported by dock fees or something like that, you can make a transfer from the general fund to bond interest.
Okay, so general fund, so we would basically, so the dock fees come into the general fund, correct?
Correct.
They do right now? And then what basically we do is we would just designate those funds for payment of the project?
That's one option.
That's one option? Okay.
Can I ask really quick, that number you gave, that was that with grants, or was that?
That was the city's share. That's
City's
with
share with
grants
the-
from
So
Johnson
that
County.
includes grants
From
then?
Johnson County.
Okay,
Yeah, that's
All
what's
right.
remaining.
okay.
That-
So we've actually pursued grants and we've
That's
lowered it.
50%.
Yes, 50%.
We've been offered grant money the past 2 years at least since I've been here.
Yeah.
From the county on the stormwaters.
So it's the city's portion of the match. Okay.
Correct.
So we've knocked that down by 50% already.
The time frame to do the spillway is pretty minimal, right? Like it needs done 2 years ago. Is that accurate?
No.
No?
It's not currently in danger of structural failure.
Okay.
It's primarily cosmetic failure right now. The last dam inspection we had did not indicate that there's a critical need for the project. It's just a project that needs to be done to shore up the spillway.
So we would have time if we wanted to do like a work session and, like this isn't up. We need to make a decision to get this on the books immediately.
Yes, we have several months at the very least before the next round of county funds would be available for the match.
But it could be realistically assumed that the longer that this goes, the higher the cost.
Yes.
That's true of every project.
Of course it is. That's why we're 13 million over on the Gardner Road interchange, but that's another.
Well, but what about the dredging then? I mean, if we talk about timing, is that any sort of timing associated with that?
No.
It's just a project that needs to be done at some point in time.
It's essentially just a water quality project. Dredging and silting in is an issue with reservoirs, small and large, across the country.
It does affect the usability of the lake. If it's too shallow, you can't run boats through it. So there are portions of the lake right now that people would like to be able to put docks in, but can't because they can't drive boats. So
So, I haven't said anything controversial tonight yet.
here it comes.
So, hopefully, several of you have heard my comment that I said drain the lake. And I had a fabulous conversation with Amy at the museum because they had an entire presentation on the lake and the history of it. So I went and dug into it as much as I could, and I thought that was fabulous. Every one of you that came up and said you're willing to do something or to be a partner, that's the only aspect I've seen. I haven't seen anybody be not willing to work. That being said, to this point in time, we don't have anything that is in the works that actually will do anything, right? It's a lot of a few voices saying, hey, this is a great idea, we'll work with you, but we don't have the Lake Association or a group that is saying, we're willing to do X. And the problem is that whatever decision gets made for anything out there, I assume is going to be an all or nothing for all intents and purposes. So I think if the residents of the lake can get on the same page, then we can have another meeting with the city and figure out how to solve that particular problem. Now, like we already said, essentially 50% of the spillway we've already acquired through grants, right? So that 437,000, 73, yeah, is what we'd have to come up with. Well, to be honest, there's not much incentive for the city to put in the 473,000, right? Because we're not going to get anything out of it other than that I can give you the keys for $1. So ideally, that 473 comes majority, if not all, from the lake residents. So the question is, how do you come up with 473,000? I'll add a couple of comments to the public comments that the points about school taxes. Yeah, our school taxes are ridiculously high, but it has nothing to do with anybody in this room as far as taxes. So I can't do anything about it.
Yeah, the USD's not going to pay for the spillway.
No, and it doesn't matter if you pay city or pay school taxes. It has nothing to do with city taxes,
Exactly.
right? I mean, I get that you're paying taxes, but it doesn't affect this. As far as sales taxes and people coming to the city, we appreciate it. I firmly believe that the residents of the lake are not going to boycott the city and stop coming here. So I think you'd still keep coming here, even if the lake wasn't owned by the city, right? So you have a close city access to gas and ice and food. I don't think that's really a huge gain, if you will, from the city's perspective. I mean, tax dollars are great. I appreciate it. But you're going to do that anyway, to be frank. So what we really have to figure out is how to bridge the gap on the spillway. I don't think dredging's even on the table, and if it is, it would be after we gave you the keys, as far as I'm concerned.
You are one vote.
I know. Yeah, I can go down the list. And I don't think the mechanism to collect any fees should be dock fees. I don't think that's the appropriate mechanism. I think it should be something that's all owners or none, essentially.
Well, I think it has to be. In order to make it work, it has to be.
Well, our only mechanism for collection is dock fees, though.
Right, that's the problem.
So unless they create their own benefit district, and I mean, I don't think the county will probably give them a hard time, then we could do something there, and we could coordinate the transfer of ownership with when we do the spillway and so on, whatever. My guess is that's probably going to be the easiest way, but yet that's not an easy way. There is no easy solution. And my comments to draining the lake, I don't actually want to drain your lake.
Thank you.
But if that spillway became a hazard, I guarantee you I can get a backhoe out there, and every time there's a receding of the lake, that we can lower it ever so slightly, like it's a bathtub, where you have that overflow, and I can keep lowering it so that that spillway isn't a problem. But that will lower your lake. So that's my comment for draining the lake. If push comes to shove, I don't want a house downstream to be in danger because we couldn't come up with $473,000. So that's where that comment comes from. I'm sure some of you have heard it. Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you're not 100% wanting to drain the lake, because I would think most of us up here don't want to drain the lake. I think we need more information. I think you do bring up valid points, Mark, but some are maybe a little extreme compared to what I would think. I don't know what everybody else is. It's just my opinion. I definitely think we need to have more information. I think we need to work together, like everybody said. I think it's an asset, in my opinion, and we should work together. And I know that that's very optimistic that we can work together, but I think we can. I think this is a good start. I don't want it to be something that we talk about now and then a year from now we haven't done anything. I think we need to get a plan and figure this out and work together.
This has gone on too long. I mean,
Right.
It is, and I think this is why we
yeah.
started these conversations, and I've spoken with Ms. Heaven a little bit, and I think there's maybe an understanding that we were trying to immediately do something, and I think we're more trying to open the dialogue now and figure out, get ahead of this, and figure out what we need to do.
Back in 2010, I was on the committee with several of you guys when we came up with the plan to actually let the homeowners buy the land around the lake between their house.
Yeah, and the docks.
We came up with a great plan. We worked together. I don't know why we couldn't do that now.
I don't think that's a problem either. I think
Right.
the issue really comes down to one thing, and that's dollars.
It is.
And who's going to be on the hook for these repairs because they don't happen for free. I do know that the spillway project, we've gotten 50% grants secured, so that lowers the cost to everybody by 50%. All right, we've done that as part of the city's efforts. It's been, our grants people have been very active in that, trying to get that done. As a question of the public access, Mr. Bruce, I have a question for you. I know you're just excited to hear this, aren't you? So we have parkland on the north side of the lake, and we have the boat ramp access, correct? That's in the city's jurisdiction as well. Okay. Other than those parcels that I just mentioned right there, what other public lands do we have out at the lake?
So there's a parcel on the southwest, extreme southwest of the lake. The city has, I'm not sure exactly how many feet of that shoreline there that is publicly accessible. I think the water depth there is
Yeah, you
somewhere
can't
around
put boats.
1 to 2 feet.
Yeah, you can't
max.
put boats in there.
And then there's, I believe, 2 other kind of public access points. There's one where we've got a gazebo there that's accessible off of the city's own area there. And then there's another one on the east, kind of probably southeast side.
Yeah.
The majority of public access is along the dam, the spillway, and the immediate area around there.
Yeah, but there's no place to put a beach or anything like that.
No.
That's what I thought. Yeah,
The former beach area is currently,
It's currently privately owned.
it's privately owned.
So
Yeah.
Todd, can I weigh in here? So to move this forward, I've been in multiple meetings on this topic. To move this forward, the basic question is, how much is the city willing to pay towards the $475,000 without cost recovery? Because that's always what we've gone back to is, how are we going to recover costs? And speaking to Amy and the group 2-3 weeks ago when we met, that's really where we're stuck. Where we don't make any headway is, what percentage of this cost is the city willing to absorb with no cost recovery?
Is there a
If we have that point or even a range, then we can have a direct conversation with the residents of the lake about how to move forward. Otherwise, everybody I think is kind of sitting back thinking, well, I'm not going to negotiate against myself, and there's never a figure that's thrown out there.
Well, can we start with, okay, so there's going to be a bond and interest cost to this if we end up bonding it out.
There will.
Is there a possibility that we could take on a portion of that? So it wouldn't go it would be passed in the dock fees or other?
Cities can participate in the benefit district itself.
Okay.
Cities can also participate in the benefit district as well.
Correct.
Would there be a possibility, with the increase of dock fees, that we already got half in grants for the spillway? What if then that money somehow, we only did half of that in dock fees and then the city came up with a half or something
Ooh.
like that? Could we do something?
But those dock fees don't include the bond and interest cost. I
Or
mean, we'd be picking
whatever
that
the
up too.
figure was.
But I think that's
Or is.
where we're at
Yeah.
right now. It's like, what portion does the city
Right.
feel comfortable, if any, or all, or half? Or
Well,
whatever?
the presentation was all basically with dock fees.
Except bond and interest cost.
Well, we don't know what that is, but I think they were gonna incorporate that into the fees, right? Yeah.
You gotta assume it's gonna go up 25 to 100%.
And what I'm saying is that depending on the bond and interest costs, we could potentially absorb that. And then they would get the 400, you know. I'm just thinking that's
Yeah.
probably the best deal that we can get because we're gonna be paying that bond and interest cost.
We'd have to see the numbers before.
I understand that.
I think we'd also have to be prepared that, let's say we set a dock fee and 20 homes rip out their dock. We're gonna have to absorb those costs too, because we can't guarantee.
You're right.
Say we pick the 5-year plan, we can't guarantee how many docks will be on that lake in
5-year
5 years.
plan's not even operable.
I don't think you could do the 5-year.
No way. This would
Matt
have to be a
and Amy.
20-year commitment.
Aren't we unable to collect like 30% of the dock fees currently?
I don't know the exact percentage from you, but you're correct, there is a pretty large percentage that we're not collecting.
Right, so if we can't collect 30%, let's say, of the
Of $40 a year.
200,
Yeah.
right, so something in that range for $40. I don't know how we're gonna collect an extra $500,000. And on top of that, let's say we split it with them, 100% of the 50% that is left, 473. Let's make it 500. You're gonna double that with bond and interest over any significant amount of time, right? So let's say we paid at 500 and they paid 500. I don't know how they're ever gonna come up with $500,000. Kudos if you guys do.
I don't know if you can say
Super
it's
awesome
double.
if you do. But I don't know how I would ever be able to explain to the rest of the city that we raised 2 mills for a lake that I'm giving away.
Well, that's
Because
you're
I-
giving away.
Well, as soon as you get done with this, do you really want to take on any additional maintenance or anything else at that point? Because I think you don't.
We can't afford
You
the
can't
dredging.
afford it, and it doesn't gain you anything to annex in and get the properties in because the maintenance costs will exceed the property tax revenue. So there's really no reason to bring them in, which is why we should allow them to have their lake, which is why I just wanted to fix the spillway and move on with it. But the problem is, I can't explain to the rest of the residents why we would spend 2 mills of tax money for me to give away a lake, essentially. That's the problem. This has taken too long to where, the spillway's 473,000 after a grant instead of 100,000 or whatever, years ago. So, I don't have a great solution.
I didn't know, we met with the county as well, and kind of asked them to come back, maybe with some options from there as well.
County doesn't
May
want
not
the
have
lake.
any.
The county doesn't want anything to do.
No,
Yeah,
but-
the county doesn't want the lake.
They made that clear.
Right. Maybe they'd be willing to help with the district or something.
Like the parks, like put a
They
parks
just have to
district in there.
approve it. The residents would have to create a district.
Yep.
Well, Ryan just reminded, the county can issue the bonds for the benefit of the district.
Mm-hmm.
Right, if the residents got together as like the Lake Association or some other group and goes to the county and says, we want to create this benefit district, then they would have to approve. I don't know why the county would not approve it. I think they would.
No, but getting 233 owners to
But
agree to a
again,
benefit
that's
district is
back
going to
on
be
you
the
guys.
biggest heart. It's going to be the biggest
The
heart.
only way that happens is if the residents create this district that say, we want to basically tax ourselves. That's not just it.
Yep.
But that might be the best solution.
It might be
It's the only
because
solution.
Well, yeah, because you could have a transfer from the county then to the city. We could still work through the bonding process and get the grants approved.
Oh,
But
yeah.
it'll
I
be a
think there's no
transfer
reason
from the
not to do
county.
the grant. I mean, that's-
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yep, we could still take advantage of the granting tools. We could still, that would still be operable.
But if there's 30% that aren't paying current dock fees, there's no way there'll be enough buy-in for a benefit district for them to pay more.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. That's really up to the Lake Association. So it,
And we also have to have some confidence in the group that's out there, that they will be reasonable and know what we have to do to get this lake fixed.
right.
We cannot assume that the quote-unquote deadbeats are going to continue to remain deadbeats during this process,
Well, part of that is we're responsible for the enforcement of that,
and we're not.
we don't really do anything. They've done it in the past, but it would be our responsibility to remove the docks that aren't paying the dock.
And we're not.
I know, but there's no reason to be more difficult for $40 a year.
No.
Exactly.
Nope, the cost of removing the dock is actually more than the
And
dock
this is
fee.
from the person saying that, dollars matter.
Yep.
But I'm not gonna go out there and tear away somebody's dock for $40.
Yeah.
Well, I was referencing if we raised it.
I know. I know what you mean.
Yep.
So I think there's consensus that dock fees are a difficult method of collecting.
Benefit district would be easier.
I
It'd be easier and
the
better.
district is the way to go.
But then again, there's a what's it called, a cost sharing that still needs to be managed. And we need to get some better estimates as to exactly what that would be. We might even be able to get Bruce involved with that from the standpoint of a possible, like doing some mock bonding to see what the scenarios would be to do those, to that bonding. Is that possible?
We can run different scenarios.
Okay, that's good. Like at 2%, 3%. I mean,
Regardless of those numbers, it seems like to me that the next step is for the residents to take all of this information and do what they want with it, and for us to have some unofficial meeting
back and forth.
that lets us know what you guys want to do. We're willing to put in, at least I am, the grant for the spillway. I think that's probably universal. Whether or not you guys can come together as a group is really the question. Okay. And maybe it's just been different people out there at different times. I mean, it's hard to get any group to do anything ever. I get it. I think that's what it comes down to, is whether or not it's possible on your guys' end. And then from there, what mechanisms, what levers we can pull to help. I don't think the numbers really matter until you can even get people to say, I'm interested.
Yeah.
Right? Now, obviously, I understand the caveat might be, I'm interested for $100, but not for $1,000. Well, that's fair. But
Yep.
Until that is even happening, I don't know how we would. There's nothing to do, essentially. So I think if we can have some unofficial meeting, and any questions the residents have, any additional information they need, we can get to them. We can go from there.
Mayor Todd, I'm interested in maybe serving as a council contact with this group because I've worked with them before.
Sure.
And would love to be able to, have those discussions. I understand nothing we say is binding until it comes before the council, but I think it would be good to kind of just have the dialogue about what's the art of the possible here. So, be happy to serve in that capacity if you're so willing to.
That's okay with the rest of the council?
I'm on me.
Okay.
Yep.
All
We
right.
have to keep in mind, though, not everybody at the lake is part of the lake association.
Yes, that's
That's
correct.
correct. That's
If
correct.
we make a deal with the lake association, that doesn't guarantee 100%
Yep.
buy-in at the lake.
That's correct.
Yes, when I say Lake Association, that's probably, that's a,
Well, they're
Probably.
they're the
That's-
largest group out.
that's on me, right? What I really mean is everybody who would be involved in the benefit district, which I hope would be everybody, right? So that you can share it equally. But, there's nothing that says 5 people can't pony up $500,000 and do this. Good luck, but, I mean, The
Holy
benefit
cow.
district only has to be the people that wanna, buy in on it. Now, there's certain requirements.
The more the
Location.
numbers, the less per.
For all
per-
intents and purposes,
Yeah.
everybody.
Yes. Any questions from anyone out there? Any other thoughts?
I'll
I'd
just
like
say
to hear
thank
them.
you. This has been really productive, and like a lot of the conversations we've had that haven't gone anywhere have gone somewhere tonight. So thank you very much. Thanks for your time. And
Yeah.
And if anything, also maybe this helps with other homeowners out there.
Yeah.
They can also now kind of see some of this and help you move forward with that.
We are interested in collaboration. We want a solution that's going to work for everybody out of the lake, because you are part of the community even if you're not part of the city. So we want to be receptive to what you all are looking for. Again, it comes back to the dollars and how do we make it work for all of us. So,
Well, we'll look forward to working with you, Steve.
all right. Thanks, Mary. Appreciate it. I had a really good relationship with Larry when he was Lake Association president. I think we all want to work together. So, yeah.
And I'll make one last comment. Amy Heaven wrote a book about the history of the lake. And if you get a chance, there's a copy in the lobby, but if you get a chance to read it, I'm about 3/4 of the way through. But it's really interesting, and it also talks about the history of Gardner in there as well. And so a lot of stuff that I didn't know, so if you get a chance, it's a
Yep.
great book. Really, really well written.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome to stick around if you want to for a little.
We will be in touch.
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, a consideration, absolutely.
Go over to Belgium.
Yeah.
Sorry, Chief. Yeah, we lost. Wake up over there.
I'm sorry. So you guys might have noticed on Wednesday, if you were at the Cheese Parade, if you were on
Yeah.
Grand Street between 18th and 20th, you might have seen some of our police officers. We had 5 of our officers up there helping Kansas City, Missouri with the Cheese Parade. So they did a great job. They had a close and personal seat to a lot of the players and interacted with a lot of the players. So they reported having a great time.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Yeah, that's great.
Is that work or pleasure, actually?
Depends, do they get a beer?
City Clerk Sharon Rice. Finance memo.
Nothing tonight.
Amy, thank you for the presentation.
Yes, excellent, excellent work.
Anything further? City Attorney. Correct.
Nothing tonight.
Helen.
Nothing further tonight.
Dave's not even here to.
Yeah, Gons and Dave got
Yeah.
sick today.
Oh, goodness.
So, want to reference, everybody got the email from residents.
Yes.
This is our truck routes, and this is an issue we've been going over for the last couple of years. And as you can see, the north and west part of our city, if you're coming down 56, Gardner Road, or Center Street, which is an arterial, is going to be the most direct route that you can get to.
Yep.
Now, the PD tells me that 90 to 95% of the trucks that they pull over are going to the businesses that are by Strickland Auction. There's one on each side up there. They have a legitimate reason to be there. We have a lot of construction vehicles moving to Symphony Farms and Hilltop. There's really, our hands are kind of tied as far as what we can restrict. I mean, it's a no truck route, but if it's the most direct route to where they're going, they have a legitimate reason to be there. When you get up in the, 95 or more percent of every truck you pull over has a legitimate purpose to be there, just the redundancy of doing that's not going to change. So now we are putting the truck counters, they're on 199th Street starting this week, so we can address that issue. And then we're going to move them to Center Street so we can get some counts, but, from all appearances, they have a legitimate purpose for being there.
I don't see any reason. I mean, Center Street north of 56 was a truck route at one time. I don't understand why it couldn't be again. at least up to 167th.
Well, I think if we do that, we need to really, and maybe we need to do it anyway, or at
Yeah.
least plan for the idea that trucks are gonna use it just because of the two businesses that are at 167th Street. I think it's the plan to work on that road at some point in time.
Correct. We're assessing design this year. Our plan is to do a project next year, 2024, hopefully with CARS funding. That'll be a full resurfacing of the stretch between US 56 and 167th Street.
But I think we just need to make sure that we keep those two businesses and any other truck traffic going up and down that street in mind when we go do that redesign of that. Because we may not have a choice.
Well, based
We don't
off,
want it to deteriorate.
based off where they are though, I mean, if you designate 167th as a truck route,
I'm not saying that.
they wouldn't have to go up Center.
Yeah, they still have to go up Center.
They wouldn't have to.
Well,
Yeah, but-
Center's a more appropriate road.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I think 167th was a truck route at some point, and we
It
took
was, but
away.
it was, yeah, and the reason
Yeah,
why was because it has
there's
no shoulders and,
stuff.
yeah, it's not suited for trucks. It's really an old farm road. You really don't want trucks going down that road.
Especially with the apartments and stuff going in.
Exactly.
Have enough traffic issues.
Yeah, so Center is the better option.
I assume the reason it's not a truck route is because of Sunflower?
No,
The
it's
elementary
because
school being
of
up there?
167th. The road itself is not.
No,
suited.
Center
You're
Street.
talking about Center Street.
Oh, Center Street. No, I don't know why.
I don't know the history.
I mean, if you only have the two businesses, then in theory, you wouldn't have all that many trucks going up there, you would think.
Right.
Until now that we have
We have
growth
construction
to the
vehicles.
northwest.
Yeah.
I think it may have been, but maybe when we got rid of 167th, maybe we also got rid of that
I
portion.
think we did. Yeah.
I kind of remember that, yeah.
It seems like there's no reason to designate it a truck route, and if 95% that are traveling up there have a legitimate reason, then it doesn't matter if it's a truck route or not anyway.
Well, the thing is, it's the enforcement thing. So they're enforcing it now because of the fact it's not a truck route.
Right, but if they have a legitimate reason, they're not getting a fine.
Correct.
So for all intents and purposes, it doesn't matter that it's a truck route or not, because the people that are going there are able to be there.
So you'd
Unless
rather
we're
not
using-
change the map. You'd rather not add it as a truck route.
Well,
now.
the complaint was that it's a no truck route, but trucks are still using it. So, yeah, I wasn't making a request to make it a truck route.
Okay.
Do you think it's also because, I mean, we're using our resources to stop those trucks when they, I mean, does that play into it? Because we're using labor, et cetera, to stop them, but 95% of them are allowed?
So,
I mean,
yeah, so the part of the complaint was that there isn't a consistent enforcement, but when you've got such a low success rate, I mean, our resources are better used elsewhere.
That's kind of what my argument was. Since 95% of the trucks are valid users of that route, why keep it a no truck route?
And
Because we're going to be forced to enforce
You're
it.
essentially making a truck route for 5%?
No,
That's what you'd be doing.
no, I'm saying that the 95% that are being enforced right now.
I'm sure that that the officers are getting more and more familiar with all of them.
Yeah, I don't think we
I don't
want
think
to
we
open
need
up that, I mean,
And then
you do
we-
have this, you do have the high school that uses that route at Madison, you do have Sunflower that's right there. I don't think you wanna open it up and make it a truck route. I think we just need to be cognizant of the fact that trucks are using it for purposes that are perfectly per our statutes. And so we just need to be aware of that and, you know, make sure that we're staying on top of the road.
Well, you know, and just to give you some perspective, you know, the officers, whether they're following a truck or they're sitting in a parking lot or something watching a truck that's coming up the road, you know, they can maybe have a truck coming at them and they're putting the car in drive and getting ready to inch out. I'm going to stop that truck, because they're violating the truck route, and the truck turns into business back into park.
Okay.
Or they're behind it and following it, getting ready to stop it, and it turns off. Okay, well.
Sure.
So I think that, yeah, it's
Okay.
Maybe
All right.
it's more about communication, like
Yeah.
letting the citizens that if they complain about enforcement, like letting them know that, hey, these are valid trucks, they're allowed to be there. That's more communication from us.
Yeah.
We give that substantial level of communication.
And there's gonna be something
Never.
we don't see day by.
Well,
absolutely.
yeah, some people are gonna think that no trucks means absolutely absolutely no trucks ever.
Yep, that's exactly what they think.
But that's not what it
It's
means.
not feasible to put the entire statute on a sign, like no trucks, except.
Yeah, except local.
And I drove around the city today just to refamiliarize myself with the signs, and the signs are great, they're everywhere, I mean, they're perfect, so
Oh.
it's not a sign.
They've made a difference. We were talking about Cherokee. They've made a big difference on that road, so, yeah. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Sure. We'll start with Steve. And then just,
Yeah. So, thank you for the opportunity to work with the Gardner Lake residents. They are a pleasure to work with. As with every large group of people, it's tough to herd them into a solution, but I think we can get a substantial portion to work with us. Even if it's in exchange for like, okay, for 5 years, we're not going to remove our dock. I mean, there's an option there too. Just say, hey, we'll provide the spillway repairs, but you know, you won't contest the assessments for at least 5 years. I mean, that's an option. So we'll talk through it. That's all I had.
Councilmember Dean.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Councilmember Ween.
No, thank you, I'm good.
Councilmember Robbins.
Okay, I have two things. The first thing is, and we're gonna miss Chief Belcher, but how is the police chief search going? I don't think I've heard an update in a while.
So I am reviewing the applications right now. We got 34 total.
Okay,
We narrowed it down to 12. I'm going to do some phone Zoom interviews this week, and then I'm looking to schedule the in-person interviews for 3 to 5 candidates on the 8th or 9th of March.
okay,
Great, thank you.
thanks. And then, I haven't asked in a while, but Jason, I think we were gonna talk, maybe see if there was any sort of collaboration with the school district to maybe
Oh, the pickleball.
do some pickleball courts. I know I keep asking, but I have several people that ask me almost every week, so.
Our meeting last week got canceled, and our meeting today, they weren't in school, so we weren't
Okay.
able to meet, so I will meet with them next month.
Okay, cool, thank you so much. That's it.
Do you play pickleball?
No, I've never even, I'm not coordinated enough.
I think we're all gonna have to play.
You have to
pickleball.
start if we
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe I'll start when we get a court.
Maybe we'll have a ribbon cutting pickleball
Oh,
tournament.
perfect.
You're gonna have some dock fees for that.
Council President.
I don't have anything.
And I have nothing either. We do have executive session. Do I have a motion to consider entering into executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Motion Shute, second Deaton, to recess into executive session to discuss the acquisition of real property pursuant to KSA 754319B6, specifically preliminary discussions relating to the acquisition of real property beginning at 8:08, 15 minutes. Returning to regular session at 8:23. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? It's 8:23. Do I have a motion to resume session?
So moved.
Second.
Motion Deaton, second Whedon. We resume. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstained? Back in session. No further business. Do I have a motion?
A motion?
Motion
Emotion.
to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Baldwin, second.
Deaton.
I was on a roll there too. And we adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?